The nuclear option is officially on the table, and the British royal family is reportedly scrambling to contain a threat they never saw coming. According to explosive new reports, Meghan Markle has allegedly compiled what insiders are calling a dossier of damning materials, including private video footage, photographs, and email chains from her time as a working royal, and she has made it abundantly clear that she will not hesitate to use them if pushed. Let that sink in for a moment. This is not speculation about hurt feelings or vague accusations. Sources claim the Duchess of Sussex has actual documented evidence, and the palace is allegedly in full panic mode because they have absolutely no legal mechanism to stop her from releasing it. The reason for this alleged vulnerability is stunning in its simplicity. Unlike virtually every other person who has ever departed the royal household, Meghan reportedly refused to sign the standard non-disclosure agreements that typically accompany such exits. One source familiar with the situation put it bluntly: she saw those documents for what they were, an attempt to silence her permanently, and she was not playing that game. And folks, whether you love her or loathe her, you have to admit that was a strategically brilliant move. By refusing to put her signature on those papers, she allegedly retained something the palace desperately wanted to control: the truth, as she experienced it, documented in real time. But here is where it gets even more inflammatory. Insiders claim that Meghan has privately mocked royal protocol, viewing the institution's elaborate rules and traditions as nothing more than outdated control tactics designed to keep people in line. Sources say she has laughed at the absurdity of it all, behind closed doors, expressing bewilderment that anyone takes these antiquated systems seriously in the 21st century. One person close to the situation described her attitude as amused contempt. She sees the whole thing as a performance, they said, and she cannot believe people still fall for it. The alleged threat itself is what has reportedly sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace. According to reports, Meghan has made it crystal clear that if the royal establishment pushes her too far, if they continue what she allegedly perceives as a campaign of harassment and intimidation, she will release materials that could fundamentally reshape how the world views the monarchy. This is not a woman making idle threats. Sources suggest she has been methodical about preserving evidence from her royal years, creating a collection of materials that could corroborate every claim she has ever made about her treatment. The irony is absolutely staggering. The institution that thrives on controlling narratives may have finally met someone who kept receipts. But to understand why this nuclear option is allegedly being activated now after years of relative quiet, we need to examine the specific incident that reportedly pushed Meghan over the edge. The refusal to sign a non-disclosure agreement upon departing the royal family was not a decision made in haste. According to those familiar with the situation, Meghan viewed the standard confidentiality paperwork as fundamentally offensive, a legal muzzle designed to ensure she could never tell her side of the story. One source revealed that she balked the moment she saw the documents. She asked her lawyers a simple question: what exactly are they trying to hide that requires my silence? And that question, allegedly, became the foundation of her entire post-royal strategy. To understand the significance of this alleged refusal, you need to grasp how the royal system typically operates. When staff members leave Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, or any royal household, they sign ironclad confidentiality agreements that prevent them from ever discussing what they witnessed. Former butlers, housekeepers, private secretaries, and advisors are legally bound to take their experiences to the grave. It is how the monarchy has maintained its mystique for generations. The magic works because no one behind the curtain ever speaks, until now. Sources claim that Meghan understood this system perfectly and wanted no part of it. She reportedly told associates that she refused to be silenced like some disgraced employee being paid hush money. One insider described her position as uncompromising. She said if she signed those papers, she would be agreeing that what happened to her was acceptable as long as she kept quiet about it. That was never going to happen. And here is the thing. Without that signature, the palace allegedly has no legal recourse. They cannot sue her for breach of contract because no contract exists. They cannot threaten her with financial penalties because she owes them nothing. She walked away clean and reportedly took her evidence with her. The timing of these revelations is particularly significant. Reports indicate that Sussex Palace tensions have reached what insiders are calling an unprecedented breaking point. The relationship between Harry and his brother William has allegedly deteriorated beyond repair. Communication with King Charles has reportedly become strained to the point of near silence. And through it all, Meghan has allegedly been watching, waiting, and cataloging every slight. One source put it this way: she has the patience of someone who knows exactly what cards she is holding. She does not need to play them yet, but everyone knows they exist. What makes this situation historically unique cannot be overstated. No departing royal or spouse has ever found themselves in this position with this kind of alleged leverage. When Diana left the royal fold, she had her voice and her charisma, but she did not have documented evidence to support her claims. Sarah Ferguson departed without any mechanism to push back against the institution. Even Harry, for all his criticisms in Spare and their Netflix documentary, has allegedly been more cautious about what he reveals. But Meghan, according to sources, has a collection of materials that could transform accusations into proof. But to understand why this alleged nuclear option is being considered now, we need to look at the specific trigger event that reportedly pushed her toward this drastic measure. The breaking point, according to sources close to the situation, came in the form of a private communication from palace officials that Meghan allegedly viewed as crossing every conceivable line. Reports suggest that within recent weeks, the Sussexes received what was described as a formal warning regarding their upcoming projects. On the surface, palace sources characterized it as routine protocol reminders, but Meghan reportedly saw something far more sinister. One insider familiar with her reaction described it as the final straw. She read it as a threat disguised as protocol, an attempt to control her work and silence her voice through intimidation. The alleged content of this communication has not been publicly confirmed, but sources suggest it contained pointed references to the couple's media ventures and public statements. Reports indicate it reminded them of certain expectations regarding how the royal family should be discussed. To outside observers, this might sound like standard institutional boundary setting, but to Meghan, allegedly, it read like harassment. She reportedly told associates that she was done being bullied by people hiding behind fancy letterhead. Done. One source close to her stated that she was visibly furious, describing her as angrier than anyone has seen her in years. What happened next reportedly shocked even the most seasoned royal watchers. According to insiders, Meghan did not cower. She did not comply. She did not send back a polite acknowledgement. Instead, she allegedly responded by reminding palace officials exactly what materials remain in her possession. One source described it as a counterstrike. She essentially told them that if they wanted to play this game, they should remember what she has documented. It was not a threat delivered with hysteria. It was calm, calculated, and devastating. Let that sink in for a moment. A former working royal allegedly told Buckingham Palace that she has receipts, and they had better think carefully about their next move. The reaction from the palace was reportedly immediate and panicked. Sources claim that senior aides were blindsided by the directness of Meghan's alleged response. They had expected compliance or at least careful navigation. What they got was a reminder that she is not operating from a position of weakness. One insider put it this way: they forgot who they were dealing with. This is not someone who grew up in that system, trained to defer and submit. She is an American woman who built her own career, and she fights back. The alleged incident has reportedly transformed what was a simmering Cold War into something approaching open conflict. Sources suggest that all communication between Montecito and the palace has effectively ceased since this exchange. The relationship, already fractured, may now be irreparable, and the question everyone is asking is simple. What exactly does Meghan have that made her confident enough to allegedly push back this hard? But what exactly is in these alleged files that has the palace so concerned? The answer, according to insiders, is more explosive than anyone imagined. According to sources familiar with the situation, the materials Meghan has allegedly compiled fall into 3 explosive categories, and each one represents a potential earthquake for the monarchy. The first category is reportedly private video footage filmed during Meghan's time as a working royal. We are not talking about official events or public appearances. Sources claim these are recordings of unguarded moments, conversations that were never meant to be preserved, interactions that could paint a very different picture of how she was treated behind closed doors. One insider described the footage as devastating in its ordinariness. It allegedly shows what really happened when the cameras were off and everyone thought they were speaking privately. The second category is perhaps even more damaging: email chains. According to reports, Meghan preserved correspondence that allegedly documents the behind-the-scenes treatment she received from senior staff and family members. Written words have a particular power because they cannot be dismissed as misremembered conversations or taken out of context quotes. If these emails exist as described, they would allegedly provide a paper trail of exactly how palace officials communicated about her, to her, and around her. One source put it bluntly: she saved everything. Every dismissive email, every passive-aggressive memo, every instruction designed to undermine her. All of it. The third category involves photographs that allegedly contradict official palace narratives about key events during the Sussex years. Sources suggest these images could directly challenge the carefully constructed version of events that the royal establishment has promoted. Without revealing specifics, one insider described them as the kind of pictures that make official statements look like lies. The implication is staggering. If Meghan possesses photographic evidence that contradicts the palace's version of events, it would fundamentally undermine their credibility on everything they have ever said about her. But there is one specific piece of alleged footage that has the palace in particular distress. Sources claim there is a recording that captures a specific interaction involving senior royals that would be, in the words of one insider, impossible to spin. The details of this footage have not been confirmed, but reports suggest it documents an incident that the palace has consistently denied or minimized. If true, its release could transform public understanding of what Meghan experienced. One source familiar with the alleged material said simply, if people saw it, everything would change. The question of how Meghan allegedly obtained and preserved this material remains murky. Some sources suggest she was careful to document her experiences from the very beginning, perhaps anticipating that she would need evidence someday. Others indicate that certain recordings may have been made inadvertently and simply preserved. Regardless of the method, the alleged result is the same. A trove of material exists that reportedly supports her narrative, and the palace allegedly has no way to neutralize it. And if the existence of these materials is concerning enough, the palace's alleged reaction to these reports reveals just how seriously they are taking the threat. The atmosphere inside royal circles since these reports emerged can only be described as crisis mode. According to sources close to the situation, senior palace aides have been holding emergency meetings to strategize damage control options, and the conclusions they have reached are reportedly not encouraging. One insider described the mood as something between panic and paralysis. They know what she allegedly has. They suspect it is as damaging as reported, and they have essentially no good options for preventing its potential release. That is not strategy. That is desperation. The legal situation facing the palace is particularly dire. Without a signed non-disclosure agreement from Meghan, royal lawyers allegedly have extremely limited options to prevent any release of materials she possesses. They could theoretically pursue copyright claims on certain photographs or argue that some materials were obtained improperly, but sources suggest these avenues are weak at best. One legal expert familiar with royal protocols explained it this way: "She was a working royal with access to these spaces and these people. Unless she literally stole something, she has a strong argument that these are her personal records of her own experiences." The palace reportedly knows this, which is why their response has focused more on containment than prevention. King Charles's alleged reaction to the situation has been described as deeply troubled but cautious. Sources claim he is reluctant to escalate the conflict further, perhaps aware that aggressive moves could push Meghan toward actually releasing materials. One insider characterized his approach as hoping it all just goes away, which is perhaps understandable but hardly a strategy. The king allegedly finds himself in an impossible position. He cannot force his daughter-in-law to remain silent, cannot control what his son might do or say, and cannot be seen as either too harsh or too accommodating without facing criticism from every direction. The palace's press operation has reportedly been instructed to maintain a position of dignified silence on the matter, which is royal speak for they have no idea what to say. Any acknowledgement of the alleged materials gives them legitimacy. Any denial invites Meghan to prove otherwise, and any threat of legal action could be the very provocation that triggers a release. It is a masterclass in how not to have leverage, and the irony of this ancient institution finding itself outmaneuvered by a former actress from Los Angeles is absolutely delicious. Sources indicate that various factions within the palace have proposed different approaches, ranging from attempted reconciliation to complete severance of ties, but no consensus has emerged, and the paralysis continues. And while Charles allegedly counsels patience, another senior royal has reportedly taken a far more aggressive stance. Prince William's response to this situation has been anything but restrained. According to insiders, the Prince of Wales has taken the hardest possible line against his brother and sister-in-law, viewing any threat involving alleged materials as nothing short of blackmail. One source close to William described his position as absolutely immovable. He sees this as attempted extortion of his family, and he will not negotiate with it, period. The fury emanating from Kensington Palace has reportedly matched or exceeded anything seen during previous Sussex controversies. William has allegedly pushed for what sources describe as complete severance of any remaining ties between the royal family and the Sussexes. This goes beyond the current estrangement. Reports suggest he wants every door permanently closed, every bridge thoroughly burned, every theoretical pathway to reconciliation eliminated. One insider put it this way: William's position is that you cannot threaten your way back into this family. If this is how they want to play it, then they are done, forever. The finality of this alleged stance represents a dramatic escalation from previous tensions. The relationship between the brothers, already described as nearly non-existent, has reportedly deteriorated even further since these reports emerged. Sources claim that William and Harry have not spoken in months, and William has allegedly indicated no interest in changing that status. The days of hoping for eventual reconciliation appear to be over. One source close to William stated that he considers his brother's choices as unforgivable at this point. The brother he knew is gone, replaced by someone who threatens the institution William is destined to lead. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has reportedly supported William's firm approach throughout this escalating conflict. Sources indicate she views the alleged threats as confirmation of everything she suspected about Meghan's motivations. One insider described Catherine's position as quietly furious. She allegedly believes the family gave Meghan every opportunity, bent over backward to accommodate her, and received only attacks and threats in return. Whether this characterization is accurate or colored by factional bias, it reflects the depth of animosity that reportedly exists between the two women. The united front from the Wales household has allegedly strengthened William's resolve to recommend the harshest possible response. But this family rupture involves another person whose position is far more complicated, and that person is currently living in Montecito, caught between the woman he loves and the family he left behind. moment, Prince Harry finds himself in what sources describe as an impossible situation, torn between competing loyalties that may ultimately be irreconcilable. According to insiders close to the Duke of Sussex, Harry understands and shares Meghan's frustration with how the palace has treated them. He experienced the institution's dysfunction firsthand and has spoken publicly about feeling unsupported and attacked. But sources also suggest he harbors deep concerns about permanently destroying his relationship with his family, particularly his father, over the alleged threat of releasing damaging materials. One person familiar with his thinking described it as agony. He loves his wife and believes her, but he also knows that some actions cannot be undone. The internal conflict Harry allegedly faces is compounded by practical considerations beyond family dynamics. Sources suggest he is acutely aware of how the Sussex brand depends on a delicate balancing act. Their Netflix deal, their media partnerships, their entire public positioning requires them to be seen as victims who rose above mistreatment, not aggressors who weaponize private information. One entertainment industry insider put it bluntly: there is a difference between telling your story and threatening to destroy people with evidence. The first is sympathetic, the second is something else entirely. Harry reportedly understands this distinction and worries about which side of that line any release of materials would land on. Reports of tension between Harry and Meghan over this situation have begun to emerge, though sources close to the couple deny any significant disagreement. According to some insiders, Harry has privately expressed reservations about the escalating confrontation with his family, while Meghan has allegedly taken a firmer stance about refusing to be intimidated. One source described it as a fundamental difference in approach. He wants to leave the door open, however slightly. She sees that door as already having been slammed in their faces. Whether these alleged differences represent genuine marital friction or merely different tactical preferences remains unclear. The Netflix factor looms large over Harry's alleged concerns. Sources suggest he worries about how this public conflict affects their carefully cultivated media relationships and their reputation as sympathetic figures. Streaming platforms and production companies want compelling content, but they also want to avoid association with anything that looks like extortion or blackmail. One industry observer noted that studios are watching this situation very carefully. The Sussexes' value as partners depends on public goodwill, and how this plays out could significantly impact that value. But while Harry allegedly wrestles with these impossible choices, Meghan may be playing an entirely different game, one with stakes that extend far beyond her relationship with the royal family. Royal commentators and strategic analysts have begun speculating that Meghan's alleged approach may not be about revenge at all. Instead, some suggest she is playing for much higher stakes, using the existence of damaging materials as permanent leverage without any intention of actually releasing them. One media strategist familiar with reputation management explained the theory: the threat is more valuable than the execution. As long as everyone believes she has devastating evidence, they have to treat her carefully. The moment she releases it, that leverage is gone. This interpretation reframes the entire situation as a sophisticated power play rather than an emotional reaction. The alleged leverage theory suggests Meghan has positioned herself for indefinite negotiating power with the royal establishment. As long as these materials reportedly exist, the palace cannot launch aggressive attacks on her credibility without risking retaliation. Every negative story, every whisper campaign, every attempt to undermine her carries the potential consequence of triggering a release. One royal watcher put it this way: she has essentially created mutually assured destruction. They cannot go nuclear on her because she can go nuclear right back. And unlike them, she allegedly has documentation. Brand protection appears to be another potential motivation behind the alleged strategy. By establishing publicly that she possesses receipts documenting her treatment, Meghan ensures that any palace attempt to paint her as a liar or exaggerator can be met with the implicit threat of proof. Sources familiar with her thinking suggest she has long been frustrated by narratives that dismissed her accounts as fabrications or attention-seeking. One insider described it this way: she is tired of being called a liar by people who know exactly what they did. Now everyone knows she can prove it if she needs to. That is not a threat, that is protection. Future opportunities may also factor into Meghan's alleged calculations. Some insiders speculate she is positioning herself for ventures that require her to be seen as the wronged party, the survivor who emerged stronger from institutional mistreatment. This narrative is valuable for book deals, speaking engagements, advocacy work, and entertainment projects that tell stories of resilience and triumph. One entertainment industry source observed that the wronged woman who fought back is a powerful archetype. If Meghan is building toward projects that require that positioning, establishing that she has evidence of her treatment makes the narrative unchallengeable. But history offers a cautionary tale about former royals who used media as weapons against the institution that wronged them. And that parallel is making many observers very nervous. Royal historians and commentators cannot help but draw comparisons between Meghan's alleged approach and the most infamous example of a royal using media to fight back: Princess Diana's 1995 Panorama interview. In that legendary broadcast, Diana told her truth about the breakdown of her marriage and the failures of the institution, reaching an audience of over 20 million viewers in the United Kingdom alone. She deployed her vulnerability as a weapon, and the monarchy never fully recovered from the damage. The similarities to the current situation are uncomfortable and obvious. Like Meghan allegedly, Diana felt cornered by an institution that she believed was trying to silence and marginalize her. She turned to media because traditional channels had failed. She wanted the public to hear her side of the story directly, unfiltered by palace spin. One royal historian described the parallel this way. Both women felt they were fighting against an establishment determined to control their narrative. Both realized that public opinion was their most powerful weapon, and both were willing to use it. But there is a crucial difference that makes Meghan's alleged position potentially far more dangerous for the monarchy. Diana had her charisma, her emotional honesty, and her sympathetic story. What she did not have was documented evidence. Her account in the Panorama interview was powerful, but ultimately deniable. The palace could characterize it as one woman's bitter perspective. Meghan allegedly has something Diana never possessed: receipts, video footage, emails, photographs, materials that could transform accusations into undeniable proof. The palace's fear is that another explosive tell-all from someone who lived inside the institution could permanently damage the monarchy's younger generation. King Charles is in his 70s. His relevance depends partly on the promise of William and Catherine as the future of the crown. If materials emerged that showed William or senior staff in an unflattering light, it could undermine the careful image cultivation that has positioned the Wales family as the monarchy's salvation. One royal expert put it starkly: Diana wounded the institution. Meghan, if she releases what she allegedly has, could inflict damage that takes a generation to repair. The Diana comparison also carries a warning. Diana's Panorama interview achieved its immediate goals but contributed to a chain of events that ultimately led to tragedy. The question of whether Meghan's alleged approach will bring her vindication or destruction remains to be seen. So where does this leave the future of the British royal family? The answer is somewhere between Cold War and catastrophe. What we are witnessing is a standoff with no obvious resolution. Two sides with everything to lose and no clear path to compromise. The palace cannot force Meghan's silence without an NDA and without taking actions that might provoke the very release they fear. Meghan cannot release materials without potentially destroying her own brand and any remaining hope of family reconciliation. Both sides are trapped in a prison of their own making, and the bars are forged from years of mutual grievances and alleged documented evidence. The impossible choices facing each party are genuinely fascinating. The palace must decide whether to continue their current approach of dignified silence, attempt some form of reconciliation, or escalate through public attacks that might trigger retaliation. Each option carries massive risks. Reconciliation would look like capitulation to threats. Attacks could produce the documentary evidence that proves their critics right. And dignified silence simply allows the current narrative to continue unchallenged. One royal advisor allegedly described it as a situation with no good options, only varying degrees of bad ones. Meghan faces her own impossible calculus. Releasing materials would vindicate her claims but potentially destroy her reputation as someone who took the high road. Holding the materials indefinitely maintains leverage but provides no resolution to years of conflict. Attempting reconciliation would require trusting an institution she allegedly believes has repeatedly betrayed her. One source close to her described the dilemma simply: she can be proven right, or she can be at peace. She cannot have both. Speculation about how this standoff resolves varies wildly among royal watchers. Some predict it will remain a Cold War indefinitely, with both sides maintaining their positions without ever triggering full conflict. Others believe something will eventually be released, whether through Meghan's choice or through some leak or legal process. And a minority hope for genuine reconciliation, though that outcome seems increasingly unlikely given the alleged positions of both parties. One thing seems certain: the next few months will reveal whether this was an elaborate bluff or a genuine threat with the documentation to back it up. The royal family has survived wars, abdications, divorces, and scandals that would have destroyed lesser institutions, but they have never faced an adversary quite like this. Someone who allegedly has evidence, has platform, has nothing left to lose with them, and has every reason to feel wronged. Whether Meghan ultimately uses what she allegedly possesses, or simply lets its existence serve as eternal protection, she has fundamentally changed the power dynamic between the Sussexes and the crown. What do you think? Should Meghan release what she allegedly has and let the world see the documented truth? Or is this leverage better kept private, a sword that never needs to leave its sheath? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.